What if I told you that one of the most powerful guides to resilience wasn't written by some modern guru, but by a man on death row 1,500 years ago? Well, today we're diving into Boethius's incredible work, The Consolation of Philosophy. It's a book written from the brink of total disaster that asks a question we're still asking: how in the world do we find happiness when everything falls apart?
So, to really get this book, you have to get the man who wrote it, Boethius. And his life was, to put it mildly, a roller coaster. 1 minute, he is at the absolute peak of Roman society. He's a celebrated philosopher, he's got the highest job in the government, and he even gets to see his 2 sons achieve that same incredible honor. And then, just like that, it's all gone. He's thrown in a prison cell, falsely accused of treason, stripped of everything, waiting for a gruesome execution.
And it's from this place, this pit of total despair, that Boethius starts writing. You can feel the pain in his words, right? He feels completely betrayed by his own good luck. He's basically saying that all the happiness he used to have just makes his misery now feel so much worse. He's asking that timeless question: why do bad things happen to good people? How can the world be so unfair?
So as Boethius is sitting there just drowning in his grief, this majestic woman appears to him in a vision, and she tells him she's his oldest friend, the one who's been with him his whole life, Lady Philosophy. But she isn't there to just pat him on the back. Nope, she's there to make a diagnosis.
And her diagnosis is, well, it's pretty shocking. She tells Boethius that his problem isn't the prison, it's not the false accusations, it's not even his impending death. The problem is him. She says his real sickness is that in all his sorrow, he's completely forgotten who he actually is. I mean, what a radical thing to say to someone in that position. Lady Philosophy is basically telling him his suffering isn't coming from his bad luck. It's coming from the fact that he was looking for happiness in all the wrong places, in wealth, in power, in his reputation. He tied his happiness to things that could be taken away, and now that they're gone, he feels like nothing. He forgot that his true self, his true nature, is internal.
So, with that diagnosis made, philosophy begins to just systematically dismantle all of the worldly things Boethius is so busy mourning. And she starts with the one thing he blames the most: the goddess Fortune.
And philosophy's argument here is brilliant. She says, look, Fortune hasn't betrayed you at all. Actually, by taking everything away, she's just being herself. Her entire nature is change. Her one constant is that she's always changing. Expecting good fortune to last forever is like expecting the seasons to stop changing. It's just a total misunderstanding of how the world works.
Now, this same logic applies to the first of the so-called false goods that we all chase: wealth. And come on, we still believe this today, don't we? If I just had enough money, I'd be secure, I'd be self-sufficient, all my worries would disappear.
But philosophy just flips this whole idea on its head. She argues that wealth doesn't make you self-sufficient. It just makes you dependent on other people to protect it. It doesn't bring you security, it brings you the constant fear of losing it all. And it never satisfies, because greed is a hungry ghost. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets.
Okay, next on the chopping block is power. Now, for Boethius, a guy who held the highest office in Rome, this loss is a deep one. He misses that feeling of control, the respect, the honor that came with his job.
But here's the great paradox of power, she points out. The most powerful people, she says, often live in more fear than anyone else. They're constantly afraid of being betrayed, of being overthrown. Instead of making you safe, power basically just paints a giant target on your back. And finally, she gets to fame. You know, glory, the desire to be remembered, to be celebrated, to leave a legacy. Surely there's got to be some real value in that, right?
Philosophy's answer here is just cosmic. She zooms way out and points out that even the greatest fame is just a tiny, temporary thing. It's limited to one little corner of the world for one brief moment in the endless ocean of time. Compared to eternity, she says, the most lasting legacy is nothing. It's an echo, not a real source of self-worth.
All right, so if wealth, power, and fame are all just mirages, where on earth we find true happiness? Well, now that she's cleared away all the rubble of these false ideas, philosophy starts to build her case for what happiness actually is.
She explains that the big mistake we all make is that we chase these things, riches, honor, power, like they're separate items on a shopping list. We think, oh, if I could just get enough power or enough fame, then I'll finally be happy.
But here is the key insight. True happiness isn't any one of those things. It's the perfect, unified state where they all become one. Think about it. You can't have real power if you're not in control of your own desires, right? You can't be truly rich if you're poor in spirit. Happiness is that single, perfect source from which all these other good things naturally flow.
And this powerful idea that happiness is this single, perfect thing leads Boethius and us to the final, really profound conclusion of her entire argument.
She starts with something pretty simple, a premise that basically everyone can agree on. What do we all want deep down? We want the highest good, which is just another name for perfect happiness. Easy enough.
Okay, step 2 is a leap of logic. By definition, God is the source of everything, the most perfect being we can imagine. So it follows that nothing can be better or higher than God. Therefore, God must be the highest good.
And when you put those two ideas together, the conclusion is kind of staggering. If the highest good is perfect happiness, and God is the highest good, then God is perfect happiness. This is a huge idea. Happiness isn't something God gives you, like a prize. Happiness is what God is.
And this right here is the ultimate consolation for Boethius. If real happiness is divine, then it has to be an internal state. It's something anchored in your mind, in your understanding. It's not something you get from the outside world. And if that's true, then the spinning wheel of fortune, with all its chaos, its prisons, its betrayals, its losses, can never, ever touch your real happiness.
And so, this 1,500-year-old message from a man on death row leaves us with this incredibly powerful question. In a world that's always changing, where we're all riding that wheel of fortune, it forces us to ask ourselves, what's my anchor? Is my happiness tied to the fleeting gifts of the world, or is it anchored in something deeper, something more stable, something that no one can ever take away?